I'm
We're
glad.
ready. Awesome. Welcome to the October 12th, 2023. Hard to believe it's October, almost over, to our Inspiring Author Conversations. I'm Kathy Davis with Davis Creative Publishing. Today we'll be speaking with AmondaRose Igoe. She is a public speaking secrets. I'm sorry, we're going to start that over. We'll be talking about public speaking secrets that authors need to know to sell more books. Our theme for 2023 is growing your business by the book. Each month we welcome guests, either those that support authors or authors themselves, who inspire each other by sharing knowledge, new ideas, wisdom, and opportunities. Please help me welcome AmondaRose Igoe. AmondaRose is the Speaking Success Strategist, an award-winning speaker, expert, and best-selling author. She has taught thousands her step-by-step speaker training system. These speakers are able to masterfully, and again, masterfully book speaking engagements, magnetize their audience, monetize their message, and make an impact. She's been featured on CBS, NBC, Fox, and in the #1 best-selling book series, Chicken Soup for the Soul. AmondaRose is the author of Pain-Free Public Speaking and Share Your Story. The power of what AmondaRose teaches has helped her clients from over 20 countries overcome their biggest speaking challenges and skyrocket their presentation results. Welcome, AmondaRose. Thank you so
Thank
much for being
you.
with
Thank
us
you. I'm
today.
so happy to be here.
Were introduced originally through a group that we both belong to called Dames. It's a great networking international group that I was lucky enough to meet AmondaRose. So tell me a little bit about your background in speaking and how you got involved in the training aspect.
Absolutely. Many of you might have had a shift in your career. Maybe you never planned on being an author, but you felt this calling to do so. And I never saw myself as a speaker, a trainer, a coach, any of that. I got a degree in social work a long time ago. And at one point I took a job with a nonprofit, and they didn't tell me when I took the job that I would literally have to stand in front of hundreds and speak. I had no speaking experience whatsoever, zero, nada. But in the process of learning about the art of speaking, I found that I had unique gifts for creating content. And also, I was shifting a lot about what else is possible for me. What else could I do in my lifetime besides work for somebody else? And be in a career that I didn't really love. And so that's how my whole speaking career was birthed. It's 18 years this month that I started my business. It took my biggest challenges and turned it into, I think, my greatest gifts that I'm here to do in this world.
That's awesome. And what was your first step to gain that confidence that's needed to step out on that stage and open one's mouth?
Well, I will tell you, it is not to imagine that your audience is naked. Try to think about that right now. Imagine we're all naked, right? Does that make you want to speak? No, not at all. It's kind of awkward and weird. And so for me, it was really about when I was found out in that position that I had to speak in front of live audiences, I really thought, I don't want to fail. I could have quit the job. I had just taken it. But I like to say my mother didn't raise a quitter. And so I wasn't going to quit where I could have. And I really invested in learning the art of speaking because I didn't want the whole room to laugh at me, to make fun of me, to think that I was really bad at it. And it really did help fine-tune what I was learning, right? So I need to learn about body language, tonality of voice. I didn't need to learn how to sell books or anything like that because at the time I was just, presenting the nonprofit information. And so it was really about fine-tuning those things and learning the basics of it. And then through my career, obviously, I've accelerated all those things.
Now, did you take any additional training? I know Toastmasters has been around a long time. Did you venture into any Toastmaster groups?
I did. And okay, this is going to sound really ego-ish. I didn't ever register for a competition, but anytime you did a Toastmaster talk, I lost once. One time. And he had a really awesome story. So stories really do help you set you apart. And I really just found that I loved it. But people say, well, I go to Toastmasters, but there's a difference between Toastmasters and being in a group that is loving, supportive, and all that good stuff, right? Is really great for building confidence. But when learning really accelerated things, That's where you really want to go into an expert in that. So obviously in my own, professionalism, I have to also learn from other people too. I watch speakers, right? When I go to an event, I watch every single thing they do. Is there something that I could utilize in my own presentations, but also utilize to help my clients as well?
Well, I notice a lot of authors are empaths, kind of quiet, with quite often like to sit in a room and write. That's what we do as an author. How do we overcome that fear of taking that step into the world of speaking, and whether it's free and then eventually getting paid for it? How do we overcome that fear of opening our mouth and sharing our voice?
Sure. I'm an empath. So I will just let you know is I can bring up my energy and deliver it, but usually after I do a talk, I'm like wiped, like Zippo. And my body knows if I'm gonna do a 3-day training, my body's ready. I'm ready for 3 days. I can go for 3 days and I crash completely afterwards. So it's okay if you feel that way, because that's part of it. You also just know how to clear your energy and things like that. That's really helpful as well. So as an empath, actually, I'm going to ask: is anybody and there's an ambient where it's like an introvert and an extrovert, right? Whatever, it's close to that. I'm not thinking of it at the moment, right? Ambivert, I think is it. Yeah. So I'm an ambivert, and so an ambivert is somebody who loves being around people, but also like quiet time. Can anybody relate to that? Yes, right. So you want to utilize those times where you can bring up your energy, you can show up really big, but you also honor that time that you need quiet, need to nurture back into your soul. So often when we're speaking, some people are concerned about their hand shaking, their voice sounding quick, like a little bit off. Their heart might be racing, their knees might be knocking, they might be worrying about what somebody else will say. And I'm going to give you a technique. I call it my secret power move. I learned this when I was taking a yoga teacher training for my own practice, and I had to teach my classmates. I do this for a living. Why would that be a challenge? Because this was a completely different environment. I hadn't done it before. So at the time they talked about a term called Mula Bandha, which is the same thing as a Kegel. So, and I'll talk for the men, I'll mention what you can do, because women are familiar with Kegels often, where you imagine that you're going to urinate and you lock that flow. So if a gentleman, you're just going to squeeze your tush. And so you lock that flow. And when you lock that flow, listen carefully, your mind cannot have a negative thought at the same time. Try it. Do the lower lock, imagine you're going to urinate, lock it, then try to have a negative thought. So if you are, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got to go speak or I have to start this presentation. You started with the Kegel. You start it when you're in the back of the room with the Kegel. You start it in the middle of your presentation. Anytime you need to, stand in your power as you speak and you Kegel it. It's amazing how it works.
Yeah.
And what happens too, physically, your shoulders go back, you stand up taller, your whole energy changes, and you're able to actually communicate more clearly anytime you need to.
Yeah, I recall hearing an interview with Beyonce, and I don't remember if it was who was doing the interview. And she talked about the same thing, how at her core, she is an empath. And she's much happier just staying at home and not being on stage. But when she goes on stage, she has an alter ego that she calls up. And it's what I wrote it down.
Yeah, Sasha Fierce.
Sasha Fierce, yes. Yeah. And I kind of laughed at that because that's who she comes out as.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I have not yet found the name for my alter ego when I step out onto a speaking stage, but somewhere between where I am now and where Beyonce is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in a long time when I started my business, actually probably how many years into my business? 8 years or so ago, I came up with the term speaking goddess. So what is a goddess to me? It's not God, right? But a goddess is confident, strong.
Uh-oh, we kind of lost you. I think the rest of us are still here. So let's see. We've lost AmondaRose. Everybody else, I see people blinking, so that everybody else is here. It's not just me. Okay, let's see if maybe she Julie, can you maybe text AmondaRose and see if she can, and see if maybe she can call back in and we'll stop the recording.
Okay, we'll do. I'm so sorry about it. Obviously, I don't have any control over that, but
Yeah, no worries. We apologize for the hiccup in the recording. We had a power outage, but it's all good now. So we were talking about speaking. We said something about Beyonce. We were
Yep.
talking about your secret power move.
Yeah, so we had mentioned, just for a term like I use speaking goddess, right? So speaking goddess to me, right, is confident, strong, heart-centered, able to connect. So think of words. It might have speaking in front of it. Maybe it can even have like blessing. I don't think Dixon is appropriate, but or diva or something, words that you resonate with. So if you do speaking something, or the queen of speaking, or whatever you feel called to, the king of speaking, you can determine what that is. It doesn't need to be super fancy. It's your own. It's for you to share with yourself. But when you take a stage, or you're on a podcast or any of that, or being interviewed, you step into that every single time you do it. And when you're done, you get to be your quiet, reserved, however else you want to show up in this world.
That's great food for thought. I'm going to be thinking about that one. I'll let you know everybody here, let me know what you come up with. Now, one of the questions I have is, how do we move from thinking about speaking and stepping into actually being able to find those gigs and find some place to speak?
Okay. So there's many opportunities out there. It's your decision on what you want it to look like. So if you want to get on podcasts, there's a great group on Facebook called the Podcast Collaboration Group. And that people post when they're looking for speakers for their podcast. And you can search, and they use find a guest and be a guest, and you can search find a guest, hashtag find a guest, and that will often bring up recent opportunities. And even if there's something that was 6 months ago, that person's going to be looking for more podcast guests. So reach out to them. There's things about bookstores. Bookstores are interesting, and Kathy, you might be able to talk about it more, because if they bring in a certain amount of books and then they don't sell them, then that be something you want to be conscious of, because it might cost money to do it. But I think it's great anytime that you want to get exposure about it. And then even look at your local groups. What groups do you have that bring in speakers near you that you can reach out to? I will tell you that you have to, in order to get booked for something, you need to really have a really strong title and tagline for your presentation. It can be similar to your book. It can be the same as your book. It has to really speak to something that that audience is going to want. I like to say, really, you want to really solve a problem for them. Like, what's their big pain point that your book can help them with? Or maybe and depends on the book. So if it's a book where you're sharing your story, how is your story going to help them? Right? What thing did you overcome that your book, your presentation can make a huge difference in their life around?
I know I've probably mentioned it on these recordings previously, but the two things that came out post-pandemic that people felt they lost or missed the most was a sense of hope and a sense of community. And quite often we'll talk about how if you can provide that, whether it's in your book or now fast forward into your speaking opportunity, that people are still very attracted to those two topics, because, we were isolated for so long, and people are still looking for that sense of hope.
Yeah. And so it can be very specific as to hope, how, right? It could be, so let's just take health. And so if something's related to health, so if you can really dial in if it's related to sleeping, how many people have challenges with sleeping, right? So that could be something. It can be something around financial. It could be something around relationships. All those things fit under hope, right? And so if you really look at that, then that gives you an opportunity. So what area can I help them in? What area can I help them see that they can have hope in?
I know we have a couple authors on that are also authors of children's books. And even that in itself, offers that opportunity to be able to talk about your book and how just the experience of sitting down and reading that book with your child or grandchild or next door neighbor child, recreating that community again.
Yeah. Yesterday I was working with a client and she has affirmation cards for kids. How cool is that? Right. And so I love that because I wish I knew that stuff when I was little. And so I was working on her talk for the kids with her. And so she's going into a school program and presenting a workshop for the kids around affirmations.
Yeah.
Think about what you could do around things like that.
And Lisa Jean just made a comment. Her most recent presentation was Get Your Life in Order, Organizing Your Home for Peace of Mind. And I love that because especially during the pandemic, I know that was one of the things I did was find a drawer and I can't find anything. Okay, I'm cleaning out that drawer or I'm cleaning out that closet. I found more stuff. But that's a great way to let people know it's more than just cleaning out. It's part of organizing your life. I love that.
That's right. Yeah, I recently moved. I'm really good with getting rid of stuff, and I recently moved. And it's like, oh my gosh, you really have to go through everything and think about, do I need this? Right? Or can I donate it? Does it need to be thrown out? It certainly gives you peace of mind, that's for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of the pandemic, it also threw us into that perspective of always being on a video, on a Zoom. Since we work a lot with speakers and trainers, I've been hearing the ups and downs of some are very happy that we're keeping that Zoom opportunity or online opportunities, as well as the in-person opportunities. And other people say, oh no, I just want my in-person. But when we are asked, excuse me, it's spring in St. Louis here. When we are asked to do an online video, what are some tricks or things that we can do and remember in order to make it an easier, a better presentation? I know if anybody on here has given one, sometimes I gave one recently where there were no live people, it was just all names or all frozen photos, which can be a little daunting because you don't get a reaction with the audience. How do we handle all that?
Sure. There's many things you can do around going online. I'm just going to mention, and this might be counter to what other people hear, ditch the virtual backgrounds. Because what happens? I move my hand disappears. And so it's very distracting when a piece of a head goes out. Right? And so unless you have the perfect lighting, there's a lot that goes into the green screen and the lighting and all those things that make it not do those things. I say ditch the virtual backgrounds. So just find a space that you can really present. So when you're speaking on camera, you want to look straight at that camera. So if there are just videos, people's images there, you are not seeing those images. You want to imagine that you are presenting to one person, just one person, because that's how they feel. They feel like you're talking to them. And so that's super important. Engagement is crucial online because if it's not engaging, you're going to lose them. So keep them in the chat. Hey, type yes if you agree with that. Think about this. What about this perspective? Did what I just say land with you? Type, oh yeah, in the chat. You have to consider those things to keep them engaged because when they're online, they're not in front of you. They're going to pull you as well. And then also too, just check your live.
Uh-oh. Oh, dang. I see other people moving. If you're live, give me okay. I see people moving. That's awesome. Julie, we've lost
Crazy. My apologies. I feel horrible about this.
We're learning new tricks. Yeah. And we were just talking a little bit about the video aspect, and we heard from Lauren and Lisa Jean on some of the things that they do. Lauren mentioned focusing right on the green light, the camera, and Lisa was talking about, Lisa, you mentioned adding interaction with the people in the audience, which I think is important also. Not always an easy thing to do on video.
It will become natural when you're used to doing it, right? So in this case, I can see all of you and where it's, I'm teaching to hundreds of people, it's really challenging to stay connected. You can't see them often, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
So, and just think, it doesn't need to be planned out. Did you say something really cool? Hey, if you love that, type yes in the chat. It's just, it will become very natural when you do that. And before I got disconnected, I was just talking about lighting. You want to make sure that in my office, there are 3 windows. Do you see a window? No. So windows, depending on how the light hits them, you can get a lot of glare from a window. You want to watch that. And watch and see, is one part of your face lighter than the other as well? Because maybe the light's hitting this way. So that's really stuff to be conscious of. I can't put a circle light in front of it dries my contacts out. But that's another way to get that full on light that you like. That makes this look really good.
So what are some ways that we can promote, as authors, promote our books, whether it's online or in person and we're speaking?
So if you're speaking, you want to sell your books, then
Oh my, I feel so sorry for her. We may have to have her back.
it up here and you say, in chapter, you actually refer to the book, you hold it up by your head. Anybody know why you hold it up by your head?
It's the camera. That's what the camera can see.
It's what the camera can see, and this is in front of live audiences too. So you want them looking up, not down. You want them associating you with the book. Absolutely. If you can, I learned something when I came out with my first book, Pain Free Public Speaking, many years ago. And when I wrote that book, I would go and I was speaking to a group of 100 women, and I had a workshop at the same time, and I offered my book and I offered my workshop. So what do you think most people bought? Anybody want to guess? Workshop or book?
You said you held your book up? Yeah.
Yeah.
The book. Yeah.
So they, because I offered my book in my workshop, most people bought the book. So when I got home, I'm like, wait a minute, why didn't I had a couple registrations for the workshop. So if you have like a workshop or something coming up, include the book as a gift and tell them you're going to autograph it for them. I like to write personal notes because I am an empath. I can feel into what somebody might want to hear in that book, right? In that autograph. So I'll write a personal note to them based on how I feel about them or some kind of message that I want them to hear, and then I'll sign it. It feels very customized to them and it feels very personal. And that way, if you do have a workshop or something coming up, you're going to sell more of those tickets by including the book. So this way they don't have to choose one or the other. Thank you for the heart, Lauren.
And that also, so if you're speaking in person and let's say you have someone helping you have a table at the back of the room with books on it, how do you incorporate that into your talk?
You can tell people in your closing. So remember, we're gonna refer to the book. You're gonna refer to the book when you talk about your experiences and even maybe why you wrote the book. And then you're gonna say at the end, if you'd like to get a copy of this, come and see us, and you tell them exactly where to go. Don't say come to our table. Tell them exactly where to go. I'm over by this door, or if you have any questions about what I shared today, come and see us. So you want to really tell them exactly where to go.
Awesome.
Because a confused mind doesn't make a decision, right? So if they don't know where to go, they'll just go, oh, I'll catch them later. I'll figure out where they are. Now you haven't made it easy for them, and make it easy for them.
One time I was at an event of probably a couple hundred people in the audience, tables of 8, and the speaker had hidden under, I'm trying to remember. So the chairs must have had some sort of, covering where she hid at each table, maybe 8 tables of 8, and had hidden a book under one chair at each table. Mm-hmm. And as a way to help promote additional sales, it's like, well, she got a book, kind of the FOMO thing, fear of missing out. Yep. She got a book. Now I need a book. I've got to go buy one. Yeah.
You could do that. You could also, if you wanted to collect business cards, right? So you're speaking somewhere, it's not like a huge event. Maybe there's 50 people. You go around and you say, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm the speaker today. I'm going to be giving away a copy of my book. Would you like to put your business card in here?
I love that. And while we hope she comes back here in a second. Lauren, I love that you captured that quote from her, a confused mind doesn't make a decision. I love that. Yeah. And Lisa Jean talked about the secret power move. It was mind blowing also. The other thing that I've seen people do is when we're talking about books and how to, especially online, is some of the speakers will give away books. And like the first person to put their name in the chat, the first 3 people, I'll mail you my book. That's one way you can handle it also. And we have time here, if while we're waiting on AmondaRose, if you have also found a way to promote your book while you're speaking. If you want to just raise your hand or unmute yourself and chime in here, that would be great. I know, Kim, when you had your art fairs, you would have your book in your booth. Is that correct? Did we lose Kim?
Normally not, because my art fairs, they're juried shows that I do. And so I'm juried in with art. Now I do have 3 events coming up now that are more kind of like art fair, craft fair, that I will have my book at each of those. So I'm excited because, the book events I've done have been like where like 3 or 4 people show up, where these events will have multitude of people because they're attending the craft fair or an art show. So I'm anxious to see how things go.
No, that's awesome. Any other ideas? Lauren, was that your hand or are you just moving?
I honestly was just moving,
Okay.
but since this is my first journey of a book, I don't really have much experience to say how I sell it besides just natural conversation, or I always like to say I have a promotional personality, just because if I believe in something, it's what I ooze anyway. So that's all I can really think about is just, oh my gosh, have you met the community? I don't know, something like
I know a couple of things that I've seen our clients use. So we had one speaker who knew what his price was for speaking for a fairly large agricultural company. And I think at the time, I'll just say I think it was Monsanto. And he knew there was going to be 300 executives in the audience and they were not quite comfortable with his fee. And he said, okay, well, I can reduce that. But at the same time, wouldn't you like for each of your audience members to have a copy of my book? And so with that, then they not only, they reduced his fee, but then they paid him for the book. So it kind of leveled out. And he was able to sell 300 books to an audience. So there are ways. AmondaRose, welcome back. Thank you.
Sorry, every time we have 2 routers in our house, just in case one goes out. But with the power going out, they both go out. So may I finish what I was saying, Kathy?
Please.
Okay.
Please.
So you go and you collect all the business cards. Then from the stage, you pull a business card and you give the book away.
I love that idea.
Right. So now you have all the follow-up for every single person that put a card in your little basket or bag. So that's a great way to collect the cards.
I just saw a speaker do that the other day. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So overall, are there any words of wisdom that as a speaker, how can I connect this concept of I have a topic, I have a book, how can I connect the two, and how can that equate eventually to book sales?
So I have a topic, I have a book, and how can that equate to sales, to book sales? I think you really have to make a commitment to yourself to getting out there, because lots of people can say, I want to speak, but they don't take the action steps that's necessary for it to happen. So you need to a couple of things you want to be conscious of is, one, you have to do the research. That's important. You've got to look for the groups. 2, as I mentioned, you really want to have a great title and tagline and a talk that you can talk about. I call them signature talks. So that way it's a talk you do over and over again. You don't have to reinvent the talk. And it's called the talk because it's a conversation instead of a presentation or speech. And it's a signature because you can repeat it over and over again. So having that, where was my, let's see, Finding the groups to contact. So it's always better to pick up the phone than send an email. Always.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, you can do a book, you can make a call and send an email as well, but it's really in the follow-up, and it's not just one email. People have over 200 emails in their email box, right? And so when that happens, what happens to your email? It gets lost. All the other stuff that's important in their life becomes a priority. So sending at least 5 emails for that same speaking gig makes a lot of sense to do that.
And I know I was just thinking one of our clients who is more along the self-improvement, personal improvement genre for her book. One of the things that she does, and she's not after the huge 300-person audience or even 100-person audience yet. She may get there. I know she will get there. But what she does now is that she specializes in helping offices pretty much learn how to play well together in the sandbox. And she focuses on medical field, like dentists and doctors. And so she'll talk to the office manager. Mm-hmm. She'll bring lunch in. And then she also includes her book. If they want to buy the book, she does these mini workshops and includes the book as a part of the sale. And then it's employee, what do you call that, value, adding value to the employee experience kind of thing. So she's starting very small, and then hopefully her big long-term goal is more the medical conventions. That's what she has on the horizon. So you don't have to immediately step into that 100 or 300 person audience.
No, and you have to really find what you're comfortable with, right? Mm-hmm. So listen, some people, I'm happy there's 5 people in my audience. Some people I want 40. And you can also determine for yourself, like, what's your minimum number for you? Mm-hmm. What's your minimum number? I had shared this at an event on my social media. Gal posted for me a video clip where there's 40 people supposed to be there. Last minute, the guy changes it to a back of a Mexican restaurant. I literally ended in a back of Mexican. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what is this? 6 people and me in a Mexican restaurant, and it was really dark. The back was.
Oh, I hope we get her back. This is a learning experience for me also, because it's like, oh my gosh, she's in a storm in Florida, and then we're getting to experience it with her. Any other people if you'd like to just hop in here, if you'd like to say some of the things that you've done that could perhaps help when you're trying to promote your book and speaking with small groups or large groups. I know one of the things I also have seen recently is people on a video, like we're doing here, is that the speaker will sometimes add the link in the chat as to where people can go to get their book. Hopefully she'll hop back on here again and give her a chance to kind of sign off. And I know she has a couple of free gifts for the audience today. Any other concepts that you've tried that have worked? Or I know we were at some sort of expo, and there was a very well-known cooking network persona speaking at one of the booths. And those of you that know my husband know he's a big foodie. And so we stopped by there, and lucky for him, he sat in the chair that had a special gold star that neither of us saw. And the person that sits in the chair with the gold star got her just released book with a private note in it. So that was kind of fun too. And so I'm looking around the room to see what kind of genre. Kim, yeah, hop in here.
One thing I did that, of course, mine is a children's book and stuff. I do a lot of social media, and I created just a limited edition, like 6 calendars using images from my book. And I've said, anybody that shares this post about the book being available and stuff like that, your name will be put into a drawing, and I will pick 6 winners. And I mean, it went crazy. That post got shared a ton. So even just giving a copy of your book, saying, if you share this post, doing a special drawing. So I
love
think
that.
using social media helps a lot. Yeah.
And think about where you network. So I know a lot of the networking organizations here in St. Louis that attracts a lot of people that work for major corporations like A.G. Edwards and Edward Jones and what used to be Monsanto is now Bayer, but these major corporations. And everybody that works at those corporations will know, be sure to ask. So I hear you work at A.G. Edwards. Who can I talk to? Who does the organizing of events and for your employees? Yay, we knew you would be back. We've just been talking.
I have my sister. I've never seen anything. I've never go offline. This is so crazy. So
That's
crazy.
what I said. I told everybody we'll have to have you back when the weather is.
Yes, I'd be happy to come back. And I'm
Yeah.
really sorry about this crazy weather.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
It's one of those learning experiences for me too, because we're just, the show goes on. We're all good. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And so
Definitely would
trying to
like
remember.
to know. May I ask? I definitely want to know what happened in the back of that Mexican restaurant.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
I gotta hear it.
Thank you,
So here I
Jamie.
am.
I
I'm
know.
even speaking, thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And then a gentleman comes up to me, and he was a doctor that had just moved from Atlanta to Florida. And he had coded in the operating room floor twice. And God told him, I'm not done with you yet. And so he wanted to start speaking.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he ended up being one of my clients. And I knew from that moment that I was meant to be in a back of a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. I think as you start entering in the speaker world, you may get to experience one of those. Yeah, I had my own show up at a expected 30 to 50, and there were 3. And as you said, the show goes on. It became more intimate at that point. It's like, okay, yeah, we can do this.
Right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Wayne Dyer used to say, even if there's one, I'm going to deliver the presentation.
Well, and that's important, because especially if you've crafted your message, what I always tell people buy your message before they buy your book. Let your message lead all your marketing. Like Kim was saying when we were waiting for you to hop back on, was that now Kim, it just went out of my head. We were talking about your book and how she uses social media and gets people involved and with little contests about and sharing information that, if you share this information and then I'll put your name into a hat, share my post, your name goes in a hat, and you not only, maybe you get the book, or maybe you also get the calendar that she just created from the images in her book. So before we lose you again, I want to ask, when you're working with your students or working with your clients, what is words of wisdom that you could leave with us that we can take forth and go into the rest of our day with regards to speaking, finding that next speaking gig, or becoming a better speaker?
So I have run my entire life. My last name is Igoe. I'm sorry, it says my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize. My last name is Igoe. And so to me, and even though I'm married, I kept that. I have a hyphenated last name, but Igoe means I go where God leads me. And so I have always been willing to take the next step, whether the spiritual beliefs or anything like that. I take the next step. God, spirit, universe, whatever you call it, will take 2 or 3. But you have to make a commitment to making the next step. So think about, as we approach the end of the year, get really clear on what your speaking vision is, why you want to do it, why people need it, and what steps you can take now to move you in that direction.
I love that.
And then watch what happens and shows up for you.
Intention sets the stage, so to speak. Yes.
That's right.
Every time.
Yep.
So I understand you also have some free gifts that we're going to let people know about and send the links out when we send the recording out. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So I have a speaker personality quiz, which is just fun to take. So if you go to AmondaRose.com, I'm going to tell you, Google's going to want to change it to AmondaRose. It is AMO. It gets auto-corrected all the time. There's a whole story about my name. I'm happy to tell you that at some point. AmondaRose.com/quiz. And even if you go to my homepage, AmondaRose.com, you'll see the quiz at the top, and you can learn which type of speaker you are. It's really kind of cool to do that. It's a lot of fun as well. And then if anybody wants a little private conversation with me, on my website as well is a brainstorm session. So we'll schedule a time for you and I to talk. You can kind of share with me what your concerns are, or your challenges, or a roadblock that you have. And I'll do some laser coaching to kind of help you start to move forward and to kind of let that, whatever that's in your way, let it go, and you'll know how to handle it.
That's awesome. And we'll include those links in the follow-up email. That will have also the link to the recording. We're going to figure this recording thing out, I promise. And also we'll have your contact information in that same link, in that same email that goes out, AmondaRose. So I thank you for your patience today, everybody. Thank you, AmondaRose. I've lost track how many times you had to jump back on, but thank you for doing that. It was awesome. I loved the experience of learning how to just keep going with the flow. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Our next opportunity to be together is October 26th. We'll be talking with Kevin DeRogers about artificial intelligence for authors, the pros and cons. That's Thursday, October 26th at 11:30. Same time, same bat channel, same bat cave. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Bye-bye.
Kathy. Thank you.